Welcome back to another review, this time for the anime Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, which had 23 episodes and was airing from summer to autumn of 2023. Synopsis on any list. The past comes to light when second-year students Satoru Gojo and Suguru Geto are tasked with escorting young Riko Amanai to Master Tengen. But when a non-sorcerer user tries to kill them, their mission to protect the star plasma vessels threatens to turn them into bitter enemies and cement their destinies. One as the world's strongest sorcerer and the other its most twisted curse user. So, I am going to be, a little bit more vague, go into ratings, and then I can, let my thoughts flow freely. So, animation, fantastic. A lot of good animation, a lot of good. I like the soundtracks, I like the openings, the second openings, the visuals, very fitting, very good. I like the story. It is not as comedy heavy as the first season. We lean a lot into action, and the action is fantastic. Fantastic choreography. Some of the fights look really it's hard to say realistic, but like a fist fight. Whenever fists are thrown, it feels like a normal fight people could have if they were a little bit more physically able. A lot of craziness as season 1 we get. It feels like we have like two different stages in the second season. We have the first part. People who know, they know what I mean. The first part, which seems more like the first season, with some comedy, some action. We can go a little bit darker, sure. The second part is action pure. It is more or less what people probably remember from the second season, for good reasons. And the second season builds up the more or less the future we now have very well. The stakes are set. It is very interesting. Machinations are happening. People are pulling their strings. People that, we know as example in the first season that Gojo has a lot of people that don't like him. They feel threatened by him. And they come out of their woodwork to, use the situation to their benefit, which is interesting. I also like how everything happens. Not going into spoiler yet. We get into there later. Gonna be more specific then. It was a fantastic second season. It was really good. We built up. We got some background information, which I really wanted. We got to see, where people come from. We saw, as example, Gojo. We saw how, his combination of skills is very strong. However, we more or less saw how he went from, hey, I'm really strong, to I'm nearly invincible and the strongest sorcerer in this time, which is very nice. We got to see where the enemy comes from as well, which is also nice to see. It just is a really good season. Again, being a little bit more vague. Gonna go into ratings and then I can talk about stuff that I still remember. Now, AniList has it at 87%. My anime list at 8.7 with 760,000 votes. Meaning, it's a good show. I mean, doesn't really matter what I think. I would say, having watched it after the movie, and now that season 3 is out, I'm a little bit late to the party, sure. I would say season 2 is 10 out of 10. It is more or less what everything that was missing in season 1 for me was here. if you like action in any way, this one is definitely something you should watch. You need to watch. Even if you don't, even if you are a little bit, I don't need that much action. It's still a fantastic show. You should give it a try. It is just that good. Now, to spoiler, again, this is going to be spoilery. I don't have any visuals. I'm too lazy for that. So, I watched the movie. The movie is centered mostly around Yuta, which I was very confused at the beginning. I was like, okay, who's this guy? Why is he like the main character? But then I remembered in season 1, we got told about another character that Todo wanted to fight. The big, guys that can clap and switch places. And I believe they meant Yuta. I don't really remember, to be honest. I'm bad with names, but I'm assuming that is who they meant. The guy they wanted to fight, that I believe even was like single-handedly defeating the whole other school. So he's very strong, and we see him being very strong, and where he came from, and a little bit more background stuff, which I enjoyed. It was very high quality. However, I feel like season 2 is even better quality, which is insane, because one was a movie, the other one was a TV show. But the news around season 2 especially, and the development was not good. It was a shame. One of the darker times, definitely, that at least came to light. Who knows what is going on behind the scenes. Now, in season 2, the animation, fantastic. You do see some parts where they were, unable to finish the animation, or they didn't have time or budget, whatever the case. You see parts where, I would say similar to like the inverse to One Punch Man season 3, where you have like, in One Punch Man season 3, you have like half a minute of good animation the whole season. And here you have maybe half a minute of not even bad animation. It's just not finished. The animation is good, but the art is not really finished, seemingly. Which is insane, because the rest is just fantastic animation. It's just insane how good they did the show. It is really. So, we are in spoilers again. The first 5 episodes, I believe it was about what is stated here, the whole part about Rika Amanai. Where we see a young Goto and a young Geto, being friends, doing this job, and at the end they, have their grievances. And this is where Geto more or less develops his hatred for humans and wants to get rid of them. And in the movie, we then, which more or less plays between after the first 5 episodes and then before the rest of the show, or season 2, I believe is where the movie is situated, where Geto then tries to, if I remember correctly, he wanted to get Gojo away from, the base, so he can, I believe it was, get rid of no, I don't know. Why do I not remember exactly what he wanted to do? He wanted to do, oh no, he didn't. He wanted to kill Yuta to get his spirit, because his cursed spirit he has in a vow with, or whatever. He wanted to get that. That was the reason, right? Because he can manipulate curses, which we find out. So we had this whole night of 100 demons, or parade of the 100 demons, which is like a very common thing that is, in Japanese mythology somehow. This Knight of the 100 Demons. And we had something similar in the movie. You know, the movie is a movie. The important part is we got introduced to Yuta. Yuta is super strong. And then in the second season, we don't see him at all, which was very surprising. And is the main part I wanted to get through. We also saw, again, a young Gojo. We saw him, instead of having his blindfold, he had like a bandage around his eyes. And it seems like that was mostly so he doesn't use his powers all the time. Or maybe because he would be surrounded by girls because he's so beautiful. One of the two. Now in season 2, again, the first 5 episodes, we see how Geto came to his hatred. And we get to see how Gojo went from, hey, I do this limitless, I believe it was his limitless technique or whatever. He did that the whole time. He did that actively, and now he developed it to be passively. And because of his other abilities, because this would be a drain on his mental capacity, he's able to rewind his brain somehow. It's Gojo stuff. He's just invincible at the moment, more or less, which he does show. And this is one of the interesting parts, and I really like, because we have this whole enemy side, and they have a plan. And we have the good side, but Gojo is OP. He's so strong, he could just defeat everyone himself if he wanted to. Or if he was there at the time. And we find out that the part of the enemy plan is to get rid of Gojo, so they have a fighting chance. The other part was to get Sukuna, because Sukuna is so strong that he potentially could just defeat Gojo, which at this point I'm not sure. So we get to see how Gojo can fight and how broken OP he really is. Now, he is not able to really unleash his full potential because the enemy was, you know, they had the help, quote unquote, with a lot of humans, and they were like, okay, Gojo can't really unleash his full power because if a curse kills people, that is, you know, a sacrifice. But if Gojo kills people, that is something he would most likely not do. And that was the idea, have a lot of people there as human shields, so Gojo can't let loose. Which, one of the parts that I really dislike is that they instantly turn to kill all the people for no reason. Which is like, the whole plan was to have the humans so you have someone to keep Gojo in check instead of killing the humans, which makes no sense. But sure, it worked out somehow, and they fulfilled their objective at the end to seal Gojo. And who did that? It was Geto. Geto, one of the big bad guys that we defeated in the movie. And hey, I assumed. Now, I did, after the first couple episodes, I did, you know, Google what exactly, why is Geto here? Luckily, the first Reddit thread I found, someone was talking about his left arm, which was not my concern because we have Mahito who can, you know, reforge your body with the soul bullshit thingy. So that was not my problem. Problem was he's still there. What really happened? I assumed he was dead. Now, the first comment I saw on Reddit was like, hey, answering your question would, you know, spoil, your question would be answered later in the season, but here's the answer in, you know, blacked out. So you have to, in a spoiler warning, you have to click on it, which meant to me, okay, I'm going to get my answers, and we did, which is, okay, good. Because at the time I was a little bit confused. So we saw Gojo fight like with a big handicap, and he handily destroyed these enemies with zero problem. Got then not cursed, but got sealed away. And then we saw why Geto was there. We did not really know much about it, but someone took the control of Geto's body. Again, spoiler by the way. So, I mean, I warned you before, but sure. Which then, you know, because Gojo, this is the Shibuya incident arc. This whole incident was solely to get Gojo and seal him away. That was the whole plan. They succeeded, but they could not just retreat because Gojo is a beast, and even sealed, he is a thorn in their sides. And that leads to a lot of fightings between the sorcerers and the curses. Which the whole point is a little bit interesting because some of the curses are like, hey, we want to take over the #1 spot, want to get rid of all the humans, and we are the new alpha, you know, species. Which is surprising because the curses only exist because the humans exist. They have like a symbiotic relationship because the negative emotions of humans are what births curses. So if humans are gone, curses can't really exist anymore. So, you know, a little bit weird, but sure. I don't know if there's another way to get curses to be born. So we continue fighting. We get a lot of good animated fights. We get to see one of the big highlights, apart from all the fights, which are interesting. But one of the big highlights is we get to see Sukuna fight. And who would have thought he is a badass? He is insanely strong. And because he's so strong, I would recommend not bartering with him. If he, you know, I would tell him whatever he wants, and I would just offer everything I can, because this guy has no shill at all. And apart from the other groups, he has no allegiances. He kills humans, he kills curses, he kills whoever he wants. If they are not fun for him or entertaining, they are gone. And that is what he did. He destroyed a ton of people. And Itadori seemingly got all the memories from that, which is heartbreaking. Because, you know, we see him battling with that, going down, you know, having all these comments surfacing from how many people are going to be killed because of you, how many, you know, do you want to leave people alive today that could kill someone else tomorrow? And we do also get to see that Minami's ability could potentially rival Sukuna. And Sukuna also was saying, he didn't specify, but he did say that this ability could have defeated him in his previous state. Whatever that means. Because Minami is able to... His shadow ability has like 10 spirits he can tame. Shadow spirits. As example, the 2 dogs, his Nue, the frogs, all spirits or shadow figures he can tame. And to tame the other ones, he summons them, and then he has to defeat them, in which way, in that case, he can then do a ritual and subjugate them. And the last spirit is super strong, and supposedly the previous incarnation of someone like Gojo, who had the 6 eyes and the limitless technique, was fighting against a previous incarnation of someone like Minami, who had the shadow ability, and both of them died fighting each other, which we assume is because the previous shadow guy used this beast. We don't know if he had control over it. Minami suspects he did not, but he got defeated and summoned with his last strength, similar to Minami here. This last shadow figure that is insanely strong, and his whole ability is to adapt in the fight, and he has insane regeneration. And that fight was insane on a whole other scale. The same like the fight between Sukuna and Lava Head was also on a whole nother scale. It is insane how, strong we get to see Sukuna is. Additionally, we get to see he got different names. More or less Minami's dad, who was the one that nearly killed Gojo earlier on, and one of the reasons why Gojo went and got stronger. That guy is insane too. He's super strong, and I don't like him. I hate him as what he stands for, but seeing him fight is pretty epic. Especially there was one scene where he was like, he wanted to take a step, and then he teleported next to another person, which this is how you show speed. This was awesome, instead of just from standstill. And yeah, this guy, he didn't have any cursed energy, but he used cursed weaponry, and he was able to fight against Geto, he was able to fight against Gojo, he was able to nearly kill Gojo, and it's insane how strong he was. Which is one of the parts, he was so strong because of the heavenly whatever, which we know in Mekamaru's case. I'm not gonna go too much into his case, his story, but in case of Mekamaru, he's so strong, he has so much energy, and he's able to remote control all these puppets because he has this disfigurement. He can't really move, he can't walk, he, I believe, only has one arm. Don't really know exactly, but that is why, as compensation, he's so strong. I don't know, sorry, what Minami's dad had as a negative, because he looked like a normal dude that was super strong, super fast, super agile, was able to fight toe-to-toe against Gojo, even though, he was depleted. He's super smart. That is why he was able to get so close to killing Gojo. I don't know what was the negative part. Because that is the idea. Hey, you have something going on. Maybe his memories are stuck. Maybe he doesn't have emotions. That was not really explained. He was just OP, broken, seemingly, without any curse techniques. If it was a curse technique, we would have at least something going on. Mekamaru, his story was a little bit weird. Because, okay, I can understand you side with the enemy, so they transform you, and then you do a double spy thingy, have Gojo rescue you. Something along those lines. Okay, why didn't you call him before? A little bit weird, but sure. Just for him to end up dead in the end. Again, was a little bit weird. I feel like he could have done this a lot better. Just have an automated message. You had the little robot thingy later on. They worked. Why didn't you have something like this beforehand? Again, a little bit weird. Just so we see who the quote-unquote traitor was, I guess. And I assume to have him out of the picture because he could be too strong in the end, because of the whole ending bit. Don't really know. This is the only part that I'm a little bit iffy on. What else? We have Minami's dad, super OP. We have Gojo fighting. We don't really see much of Geto until later on. We see, what's her name? Mia? Mia? One of the two. Lady with the hair in front. I do like her character because she is, no bullshit. It's like, pay me enough money and I'm on your side. Easy to understand. She's super strong, similar to other, characters. Her ability seems to be a little bit weaker in terms of fighting strength, but she compensates by training a lot and being a badass with her axe. Very nice. I liked the fight against the spirit she had. Finding out what the spirit is really about, and it seems like the spirit was not really strong in its fighting strength. However, because it was able to do a domain expansion, that is most likely how it got so, high grade, because it was able to trap enemies in its domain expansion and then just kill it through that, which seems like a surefire way to kill people. But in this case, our lady was able to defeat it and then went up against Geto. We don't really see much of that fight. After that, what else? We had Mahito being annoying asshole. I hate that guy. Totally, really don't like him. Mostly because he is solely responsible for getting rid of a lot of people that I like. So, hate that guy. But you need an enemy. By the way, I did not like the ending to him, because I don't know if that was like a metaphor that, Itadori was like quote unquote playing with him, but I would have liked him to just finish Mahito off instead of having the whole, oh, I'm not dead and I'm going to be back in next season maybe. Did not like that. Was a little bit too shonen. This is the only part. There were some shonen-esque parts where it's like, oh, I'm going to grow stronger, but no, I am going to be stronger, kind of, But I feel like it's par for the course, and for as much fighting and, action we had, it's a lot less. In most shows, it's like you have one fight that goes like 5-6 episodes, and then you have this whole, oh, I'm stronger thingy going on. Here, for the like 10 fights we have, like 2 or 3 have something similar, and not even in that same bracket of being super strong. Again, I mean, this is one of the little negative criticisms I have about the season. What else we get to see? It's mostly, Sukuna being a badass, Gojo being a badass, Minami's dad being a badass, surprisingly. Him fighting Minami in the end, it makes sense. It seems like he was not even recognizing him until the end. And as the voiceover did tell us, Minami's dad was mostly fighting autopilot against whoever was the strongest, which means that out of the 4 we had after defeating Octopussy, Minami was seen as the strongest, potentially because of his shadow ability. The fight against Octopussy, the fight against Blood Brother, that was interesting. I like the whole idea of, you had his ability, which is very interesting, very cool. Yuji Itadori trying to fight against him, trying to outmatch him, being unable to, then having Mikamaru help him, going into the bathroom, getting all of this water raining down, which then interferes with the blood ability. We have a really awesome fight in the bathroom, which is a little bit inappropriate as a fighting place, but sure. And then, it feels like Itadori is able to fight him off, but then he is, we have the typical, I feel like I can win, and then he is going to get trounced and he cannot win. However, before Blood Boy can kill Itadori, he has this feeling that Itadori is going to die, which we later find out is the same feeling he has had for his brother's death, which leads him to assume that he may be related to Itadori, which is an interesting idea. Especially we get a little bit more explanation to that at the end, which at the time I was like, it was very weird, but seems to could have made sense. That is then when we, the two girls find Itadori, feed him the finger. Lavahead finds the girls and is like, how many fingers did you feed him? And they're like, we are not telling you. And he's like, oh, burn. Which is very weird because he wanted to feed him 10 fingers anyway. So it doesn't matter how many fingers they fed him. Because the whole idea is, hey, if we feed him enough fingers, he can't suppress Sukuna, which is exactly what happened, which led to the death of a lot of people. Then we had the whole awesome Sukuna arc, which, again, very nice to see how badass he is. And we also saw his domain expansion, right? Yes, we did. Which is very interesting, because the whole time we have binding vows. Again, I don't know if can you have multiple with a person. Sukuna seems to have a plan to get out of Itadori. So he's like not really concerned about what happens. He's not even concerned if Itadori dies. He's like, okay, I mean, if he dies, then tough luck. I'm gonna come back later, I guess. But his domain expansion is different than the other ones. The other ones are like, okay, I'm going to trap you into my little barrier where I am going to be the strongest and I'm going to, be able to kill you. There are like techniques that can interfere with that domain expansion. One of them, naturally, your own domain expansion. But there are also simple domains that then, more or less negate that insta-hit effect that domain expansions have. However, Sukuna is so strong or so, confident in himself that his domain expansion does not have a barrier. Which is interesting because we get explained, hey, because it doesn't have a barrier and you can just leave if you are fast enough, that makes his abilities in there even stronger because you have like a shackle or a negative buff. It's similar to like an RPG where you take like a negative effect, like, a negative debuff, and you get a couple points you can put in a positive buff for your character. And this is the same. Similar to the curse techniques, if you tell the enemy now knows what the curse technique is about. Your technique is stronger because you more or less made it weaker by telling them. Therefore, it gets stronger in its activation, which I like. I like the whole concept. Again, that is Sukuna's arc. Again, awesome. We then have the whole fight against Mahito, which is it's a little bit iffy because I like that Itadori is unable to defeat Mahito. He's too weak to defeat Mahito. And even after losing a lot of people that are close, and potentially even losing, the girl of the group, potentially because we don't really know. She is dead, but she could come back, but the chance is really low. Who knows? He's still unable to defeat Mahito. He is just not able to do that. His soul is more or less crushed. His, whole being, he's so
downtrodden because Sukuna killed a lot of people, so he wanted to rescue a lot of people to, counteract Sukuna's killing. But now he has lost Nanami, he has lost Nobuka, Nodori. I'm so bad with names. The girl of the group. And it's like, he just gave up. And in that moment, naturally, he's coming in, hogging the whole, center stage, and it's our boy Todo, our brother. He is back. And I didn't really get too much into the season 1, but I like whenever those two fight together, because Todo's ability could have been just really lame. He claps and he swaps places, but the show makes it so epic, so fun to watch, and it is, it's like a dance whenever those two fight, because he claps, sometimes he switches with the enemy, sometimes he switches with Itadori, and then we get a fight as a punch, and then we clap and we do a combo, and it is so dynamic. It is so fun to watch those two fight in anime, and they bring Mahito, to the edge and more or less close to defeating him. I especially like at the end, Mahito is then doing trying to replicate the domain expansion of Gojo, which is very fun because Gojo, he's a badass. So he's like, I can't do a domain expansion because I would kill all these innocent people. So I'm going to do a 0.2 second domain expansion and going to get rid of hundreds of little, transformed demons. And it's like, sure, you do, because you are Gojo, and I guess for you nothing is impossible. And Mahito tries to do the same, which he does successfully, and disarms, literally, Todo. So he can't clap anymore. And he is then going on the offensive. This is one of the parts that is always a little bit weird, because after the domain expansion, he runs at Todo, trying to kill him, and Itadori is unable to keep up in that case, which is always a little bit weird. However, Mahito, he can transform his bodies, he can be super fast, he can jump super high, he can fly, he can do whatever he wants, because he's Mahito and he has his soul transforming thing. And Itadori is mostly able to keep up because of Todo's Woogie Boogie ability, whatever it was called. But I like the whole, he has this whole, more or less, I don't know, he is, I'm missing the word, he is hallucinating like a combo attack with his favorite idol, which is always in his mind. However, I would love if his domain expansion would be something like that. That would be fucking awesome, where he just transforms into an idol and is doing stuff like that. But it ends in an epic clap where he just uses the hand of Mahito to clap, which is just awesome, because this ends in nearly defeating Mahito. But then we have this little where they show Itadori playing with Mahito instead of just killing him, which leads to him getting caught by Geto and then, more or less eaten or, consumed by Geto. By this Geto, the new Geto, which then enables him to activate like abilities in specific people that he has chosen and more or less selected at some point. This is a little bit going over my head. It's like he has implanted like abilities in people that didn't have abilities but had the soul, and he implanted the soul in people that didn't have the soul but the ability, so they can be sorcerers. And this is only somehow connected to sorcerers. He made a binding vow like 1,000 years ago, but that one is nullified because of his new body. Stuff is happening. We will probably see more in season 3. But we find out that Ghetto, the brain that is in Ghetto, is this evil sorcerer from like 100 years ago or a couple hundred years ago, which is nice callback. So we now have an idea who our big bad boss is. He is also connected to Sukuna somehow. At least Ghetto's right-hand man, the ice dude, is also connected to Sukuna somehow. So there's something going on. They know each other, yada yada yada. We see the blonde lady coming back. That is, to be honest, I feel like the writer just forgot about her and was like, oh yeah, we have this special curse ability, special great sorcerer. Yeah, we should bring her back. And she's like, yeah, I'm not on your team, but I'm gonna help you now somehow, or help the kids. Also a little bit weird. But, you know, we have Ghetto. He is explaining that, you know, the biggest benefit of the curse manipulation is just how versatile it is. It can be used to attack, it can be used to debuff, it can be used in all kinds of ways. And it mostly ends in having this big standoff where at the time they're like, okay, we need to keep him in check. We need to buy time for Utahime to do her thing, which never happened. Whatever that meant, never happened anything. Nothing happened. And they, you know, more or less got trumped, and Ghetto released a million demons, curses, whatever. Which is like, where are they coming from? Because he has the body for like a year, supposedly. And it's like, where are you getting all these curses from? As far as I remember, like, it's like a year ago that Ghetto tried to, you know, get Yuta, kill Yuta, get the spirit, and that is more or less since when this evil sorcerer has the body. And since whereas then he can use curse manipulation to, you know, store them. As far as I know, at least. So no clue where all these curses are coming from. But it sets up a pretty good season 3, because a lot of Tokyo, at least, or, you know, this, you see at the end how this area is growing and growing. A lot of curses are there. We see Yuta back finally, and Rika is there as well, it seems, which very surprising. I assumed she would be gone, but seemingly not. And Yuta is back because he wants to kill Sukuna. That is his goal. And we get like a little bit of a briefing what happens. And one of them is Ghetto's execution order is reinstated. Another one is that Gojo is banished because he supposedly helped Ghetto in his you know, coup and plan. At least that is what the higher ups decided, because they don't like him. The leader of Itadori's school is to be executed because he was responsible for Gojo and Ghetto doing this whole thing, so they want to get rid of him as well, because he probably supported Gojo and the high-ups want to get rid of them. Itadori is banished. Itadori's execution is reinstated and to be carried out promptly. And there was another one, which I do not remember. Oh, that the first great
The movie dude, I already forgot his name, fuck me. Yuta, he is supposedly the executioner for Itadori, which we see Itadori being in the city. It more or less means that everyone, that Itadori and Gojo, they are now exiled and not part of the sorcerers anymore. Which is interesting to see how the allegiances for all the different sorcerers are going to end up in. For Panda, as an example, for Minami, are they going to be on the side of Itadori? Are they going to be on the side of the sorcerer group? I do not remember if they had a specific name. And how it all, you know, is going to play out. We also don't know the status of some of the fighters. Todo, as example, he lost his left arm. Are we able to get this back? What happened to girl, which name I totally remember, Noba, whatever. Is she still alive? Is she not alive? We know Nanami is dead. I don't believe they can revive him. Blood Dude is probably on our side. Maybe he's with Itadori. Who knows? So there's a lot of stuff that is being set up where we have like the sorcerers, we have the curses, they fight each other, and then we have a third group which is mostly Itadori and Gojo and whoever decides to side with them, the good guys in quotation. And this is going to be very interesting. Very interesting. It was, in terms of action, it was phenomenal. It was really, really good. There were even some parts that made me cry because they were so sad. We had the classic, hey, we have to have a flashback for people that, you know, are definitely going to survive, wink, wink, wink. And it was just really, really well done. Okay. So, I did have, you know, oh, wow, okay. Definitely did talk enough. Not much else to say.